Hello, whisperers. Welcome to the channel. If you enjoy tonight's tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It helps more than you know. Now, dim the lights, and let's begin tonight's story. I didn't tell anyone about the door because it sounded stupid when I said it out loud. Also, because I didn't want to know the look people would give me after. I bought the house 7 years ago. Old place, cheap, because the foundation had issues, which meant the basement smelled like a wet coin, and the sump pump sang at night. I spent that first month clearing boxes, hauling out busted shelves, cutting away blackened insulation. I found a dehumidifier in the corner and a cracked orange extension cord running behind the water heater. When I traced the cord, I found the door. Steel, shoulder width, set into stone older than the rest of the foundation. No knob, no hinges, just a slot where a handle might once have been. In the middle of the slab, someone had engraved 4 words, careful and deep. October 31st only. It didn't look theatrical, not a Halloween prop. The letters were too clean, the cuts too sharp, like someone had etched it with a machinist's tool. I tapped the slab with a wrench. The sound wasn't hollow, more like bone. I told myself it was an old coal chute bricked over, a fire door, anything but what it looked like, a door that didn't open except on one date. I left it alone the first year. I had bigger problems, leaks, a furnace that coughed rust, a job I hated. Every time I went downstairs to do laundry, I felt the door at my back like a magnet pulling at a nail, but I kept my eyes forward. Nothing happened. Spring came, then summer, then fall. On Halloween, I didn't hand out candy. I sat upstairs and watched a bad movie, volume low. At 11:58 p.m., the laundry room light buzzed through the floorboards. At 11:59, the buzz stopped. I knew it because the house went too quiet. I told myself to stop being dramatic. At midnight, the sump pump sighed. The dehumidifier clicked off. Then I heard a new sound, metal shifting against stone, not loud, just a soft clack like a lock deciding something. I didn't go down. I sat there with the movie paused and my hands on my knees, breathing like I'd just run a block. When the kitchen clock said 12:04, the dehumidifier kicked back on, and the house learned how to breathe again. A minute later, someone's fireworks popped down the street. In the morning, I went to the basement for detergent and saw a trail of damp footprints near the door. Bare feet, small. They led from the threshold to the drain, then vanished. Condensation, I thought. Pipe sweat. I mopped them. That was year 1. Year 2, I noticed my phone battery dropped to single digits any time I stood within 6 feet of the slab. I joked to myself that the door ate lithium. I bought a cheap EMF reader because that's the kind of stupid thing you buy when you don't want to admit you're scared. The reader chirped near the breaker box like it should. It stayed quiet at the washer. When I held it up to the engraving, it went dead. Screen flat. No chirp. Nothing at all. I stopped measuring after that. Year 3. I found candy wrappers by the threshold on November 1st. Not the brand I'd bought. Not even a brand I recognized. The logos were off. The colors seemed wrong, like a dream remembered in daylight. I told myself some mouse had raided a kid's bag upstairs and dragged it down. I called an exterminator. He set traps. They stayed clean. He shrugged and said the house was sealed well for its age. Year 4, I stood with my ear to the slab 2 weeks before Halloween and heard a sound on the other side. Not voices, not words. More like a crowded street heard through a closed window, the murmur of many feet, the wet drag of something scuffing leaves, a distant rustle that made me think of paper bags breathing. I moved my head an inch right and the sound went away. Back left, and there it was again, lining up with the seam where stone met steel. Year 5, I made a plan. Not a brave plan, a careful one. I cleared the path from the basement stairs to the door, rolled up the rubber mats, and marked the floor with white chalk so I'd know if anything changed, the way crime scene cleaners outline a body in movies. Except I was outlining my washer, the drain, my toolbox. I strapped a small CO2 alarm to my belt in case the air on the other side did something bad. I wore my hiking boots, the ones with real tread. I charged a flashlight and a headlamp and a spare battery pack for my phone. I clipped a cheap action camera to my chest and another to my wrist. I also left a carpenter's pencil on the step because I knew I'd forget something, and I hate not having a pencil. There's a word for what my brain did: proceduralization. You reduce fear to a list. Check, check, check. If everything is steps, there isn't room left for panic. On the actual night, I kept normal on purpose. I ate pizza. I answered a few emails. I opened the door upstairs for 2 kids and their dad. I put my phone on the table and told myself I wouldn't look at the time, but my eyes kept sliding there anyway. At 11:50, I went down and turned off the basement light to save my eyes. The dehumidifier hummed like a lazy hornet. The concrete held a low, even cold. The sump pump ran and rested. I stood there in the dim with my gear, counting my own breaths. At 11:58, the dehumidifier clicked off again. At 11:59, the sump pump failed to start its next cycle, like it was waiting to see how this would go. When the clock on my phone rolled over to 12 o'clock, the metal slab made the same small clack, and the hair on my arms lifted as if the room had found a storm. The seam around the door drew a very thin line of dark, black so clean it made the gray of the concrete look warm. Cold air eased out first. Not basement cold, not winter cold. Leaf smoke cold. Hollow pipe cold. The kind of cold you breathe on your tongue and it tastes like pennies. I said out loud, "Don't. This is enough." No one answered because that isn't how this works. I pressed my palm to the metal. It wasn't steel temperature. It was skin temperature, like a sleeping animal pretending to be something else. When I pushed, the slab didn't swing. It settled, like an elevator stopping flush with a floor. Beyond it, there shouldn't have been anything except the old stone foundation and maybe dirt. Instead, there was space. The beam of my headlamp went into a kind of haze and came back weaker. I lifted the brighter flashlight and slid its circle forward, the way you test a step before you put your weight on it. What I saw made no architectural sense. There was asphalt, glossy like it had just rained, and crushed leaves stuck to it in a wide black strip. Not a road. I didn't see lines. More a walkway. The light touched an orange shape to the left, a pumpkin with a face carved too shallow, candle still burning inside, flame that didn't flicker even when the cold pushed past me. Further out, I caught the sharp shine of tin foil, a dropped candy wrapper glued to the pavement by something dark. The air carried two smells at once that didn't belong together: sugar and rot. I leaned forward, one hand on the slab, one foot half over the threshold, and the sound I'd only heard as a murmur found shape. Footsteps. Many, not walking cleanly. Some fast, some dragging. A plastic mask creaked. A plastic bag crinkled. Somewhere close, fabric whispered as if it was full of breath. My CO2 alarm chirped once. Not a warning, just a hello. Then it went quiet. I pulled my foot back, and the sound faded, not like it moved away, but like it was waiting for me to make the next move. My mouth had gone dry. I swallowed and tasted smoke like from a pile of wet leaves. I thought about closing the door. I thought about going upstairs and sleeping and pretending I never saw this. If you close it now, you'll open it next year. If you go in now, you'll know. That was the worst part. The knowing felt like a kindness I could give myself. I hate not understanding a thing I'm afraid of. It eats you slowly. I wanted it to either be nothing or be something I could name. I tied the end of a nylon cord to the water heater's leg. I belayed it around my wrist because it made me feel smarter, like I was borrowing courage from people who go down cliffs for fun. I clicked the wrist camera on, checked the red light. I raised the flashlight. One step, just one. My boot sole crossed the seam, and the temperature changed the way a hand feels when it passes through smoke. The exact moment of difference, like rubbing over a scar you didn't know you had. The sound sharpened. The footsteps became direction. The plastic creak found weight. Somewhere to my right, something hard hit the asphalt. Not close, close enough. The air on that side had depth, like I'd stuck my head into a freezer full of old fruit and pennies. My breath came out and the light showed it as a pale thread that hung too long before dissolving. My chest felt heavy for one beat, then normal, like my lungs had agreed to a new rule. I took the second step. The cord slid over my wrist. Behind me, the basement smell, detergent and concrete, fell away. In front of me, the street smell, smoke, sugar, damp cloth, folded in. I swept the beam left and met a row of jack-o'-lanterns along a curb, everyone carved with a different lazy face, every candle steady as if under glass. On the right, a lawn full of fake tombstones leaned at wrong angles, plastic bones scattered like a dropped bag. My light brushed a bone and the shape twitched, not away from the light but toward it, like something blind turning to heat. I heard the first fast steps then, bare feet on wet pavement running. Too light to be an adult, too heavy to be a small child. They came from the dark beyond my light and stopped just outside the circle. I didn't see a face. I didn't want to. The nylon cord tugged once, slow, as if it had settled. I turned my head to make sure I still had the line back to the water heater. The line wasn't there. My wrist was empty. The end of the cord lay at my feet, cleanly cut. I didn't scream, not then. Screaming wastes air. I just backed one step and the asphalt held me like a hand on my chest. Something hit the metal behind me. One low, hollow knock, like knuckles on a furnace door, polite in a way that made my skin crawl. I kept my light forward because I understood, without knowing how I understood, that the basement was now behind a kind of angle, and if I turned all the way around, I might not see it at all. My heel found the seam again. I put my weight on it. Movement whispered at the edge of the light, cloth lifting, plastic shifting, a head turning under something that used to be a costume. I stepped backward. The beam shuddered. The cold bit my teeth. My boot met concrete. I don't remember deciding to run. I just did. When I came to, the basement light was off. The door, if that's what it was, hung open. Cold air still poured out, steady as a vent. The smell hadn't gone away either. It clung to me. Smoke, sugar, and rot. I should have run upstairs and left the house, but I couldn't stop thinking about what I saw. The asphalt, the pumpkins, the footsteps. I told myself I just needed to look again, shine the light once more, prove it was the dark playing tricks. So I went back. The slab wasn't glowing, but the air shimmered faintly around it, like heat above a candle flame. The headlamp flickered when I stepped close. The beam landed on the road again, and it was still there. Same pavement, same row of jack-o'-lanterns. The cut nylon cord lay in the threshold, curling slightly as if it breathed. I swallowed hard and stepped through. The ground felt soft, not wet but spongy, like walking on a thick carpet soaked with water. The houses were there this time, two-story suburban shapes, but every window was dark. Halloween decorations dangled from gutters, faded and shredded by rain that never seemed to fall. I heard movement again, not the chaotic rush from before, just slow dragging, like shoes on pavement or claws. I turned left, light sweeping across a front yard. A skeleton leaned against a porch column, plastic ribs cracked and yellow. As I passed, its head rolled toward me with a faint click, not falling, turning. The jaw hung loose. It grinned at the light. That was enough to make me move. Further down the street, a figure crossed between two houses. Too tall, arms too long, a costume maybe. But the body moved with weight, not shuffling, not limping. It knew I was there. I started walking faster, flashlight trembling. The air hummed, almost electrical. Pumpkins flickered as I passed, one by one, flames inside turning from orange to a deep red. Somewhere, something screamed, not human, not animal, like metal grinding against bone. The street ended in fog, thick orange fog that glowed faintly, as if from the fire of 1,000 candles. I stopped there because the light couldn't pierce it. That's when I realized the houses behind me had gone dark. Every porch, every pumpkin, every hint of light had vanished. Only the fog ahead, only the smell of burning leaves. Then footsteps, dozens of them, fast, getting closer. I spun around, saw figures running from the dark, costumes tearing, faces half-painted, half something else, teeth where masks should have been. The first one hit the light, its body wrapped in a sheet, eyes carved into the fabric, except they were real eyes, staring from behind the holes, wide and white. I ran as fast as my legs would carry me. The flashlight bounced and blurred, showing flashes, rotted scarecrows lunging from yards, masks twitching on faces that weren't masks anymore, hands with candy still stuck to their skin reaching for me. The road bent where it shouldn't have. Every direction led back to the same stretch of street. Every house had my number on the mailbox. Something grabbed my jacket from behind, cold, sharp. I spun, tore free, stumbled backward through fog and smoke. Then I saw it, the faint square of light from my basement. The door was closing. I sprinted harder than I ever have in my life. Shapes followed, scraping asphalt, wailing, laughing through broken throats. The air filled with that sickly sweet reek of sugar and decay. I dove for the doorway, hit the floor and rolled through concrete dust. The metal slammed shut behind me with a sound that shook the pipes. For a few seconds, I just lay there, chest heaving, hands cut open, throat raw. Then the smell hit again, just for a moment, faint and wrong. Through the seam of the door, a line of orange light pulsed once, like a heartbeat. And from the other side, something whispered, not words, just breath, close. I killed the basement light and ran upstairs. I didn't sleep. I don't think I could even if I tried. I didn't go back downstairs for 2 days. Didn't shower. Didn't eat much. Every time the furnace kicked on, I thought I heard the door scraping underneath the sound. By the 3rd day, the smell returned, faint but impossible to ignore. Burnt leaves, melted wax. I told myself it was in my clothes, that it couldn't follow me out. But the basement light was on when I woke up that morning. I didn't remember turning it on. I grabbed a hammer and a flashlight and went down. The air was colder than it should have been, the kind of cold that sits in your teeth. The slab was sealed again, flush with the wall. No seam, no engraving. Just gray concrete like it had never been anything else. But there were prints on the floor, bare feet, small ones, the same as before. They went from the slab to the stairs and stopped at the 3rd step. That was the last night I stayed in the house. I packed a duffel, slept in my truck, and called a realtor in the morning. She told me Halloween was the wrong time to sell. I told her I didn't care. When I came back inside to grab the rest of my stuff, I found something taped to the basement door. A folded piece of yellow paper, damp around the edges. I hadn't left it there. The handwriting was mine. I'm sure of it. It said, October 31st. If you're reading this, you opened it again. Don't. They don't want you. They want out. Don't stand close when you hear them knocking. Don't look if you see your own reflection move first. Don't follow the smell. It isn't air. It's a vein. And for the love of God, don't try to help the ones who sound human. I thought the door was a doorway. It's not. It's a wound. It opens every year to bleed. There was something else at the bottom, half torn from water damage. Only a few words still visible. We never come back alone. I left the house that night, didn't lock it, didn't look back. I drove until I couldn't feel my hands. When I stopped for gas somewhere in another state, I saw a kid in the parking lot wearing a plastic vampire mask, cheap, shiny, and cracked right down the middle. The flame from his pumpkin bucket flickered red when he looked at me. It didn't go out, even in the wind. That's when I noticed the smell again. Sugar, smoke, rot. And when I got back into the truck, there was a note on my passenger seat. Same paper, same handwriting. Only one line this time. You left the door open.